Hello everyone. Welcome to the Lucky Lake and District Museum. It's Veterans Week, so I thought I would do a little bit of storytelling as we got closer to Remembrance Day on November 11th. I will be posting 3 short episodes that I hope will keep you entertained and engaged as I tell the story of Chester Archie Cunningham. Now this is episode 1. And I want to begin with this part of the story back in 2016, when a friend of mine made a post on Facebook that immediately caught my attention. I was always looking for different activities for my kids to be in, and so when I read her post about her son's participation in a program called Encounters with Canada, I immediately had to find out more. Encounters with Canada offered students aged 14 to 17 an opportunity to visit Ottawa while exploring possible career pathways such as medicine, sports, law, arts, and culture. There was one theme that piqued my interest, though, and that was Vimy Week. Now, programming for Vimy Week focused on the First World War and the Battle of Vimy Ridge. Now, my grandfather fought in the First World War, so I felt that this would be an important subject for my kids to learn. Now, Levi, my oldest, attended Vimy Week at Encounters with Canada in April of 2017, and Lane, my middle son, attended in April 2019. It was a great experience and one that they say they will never forget. So there was no question in my mind that Liam, my youngest, was going to take part in Vimy Week as well. But as we all know, in March of 2020, COVID hit and the world shut down. I optimistically thought things were going to be going again by April of 2021 for his Vimy Week. However, in January of 2021, the program closed permanently. I was really disappointed by this news, but it was completely understandable. Now, this is where those pesky Facebook algorithms come into play. Now, because I followed Encounters with Canada, Instagram thought I might like a similar profile. So in February 2021, a post from the Vimy Foundation came across my phone while I was randomly scrolling. I am so grateful that I took the time to not only read the post, but click on the link. It took me to a site for the Vimy Pilgrimage Award, which gives 20 students from across Canada the opportunity to learn about the First World War by visiting war sites and cemeteries in France and Belgium, including, of course, the Vimy Memorial. I sent Liam a text telling him about the award and asked if he was interested in applying. It was a lengthy application process, and he only had 9 days to get everything completed and submitted. But then he was shortlisted for an interview, and in April 2021, he got the news to say he was chosen for the award. Now, the Vimy Pilgrimage Award recipients were scheduled to go to Europe in November of 2021. Liam and his group had regular online meetings with readings, questions, discussions. Also, each student was part of a group project and had to prepare a soldier or nurse biography. Now, the poignant part about the biography is that the students would be presenting it to the others at the actual grave of the person they had researched. Now, Liam knew exactly who he wanted to choose for the biography, but he was nervous it wouldn't be allowed because this particular grave was located in a cemetery outside a specified region. But it was accepted, and Liam was going to do his biography on Private Chester Cunningham. Now, growing up, I was aware that my grandfather's brother, Chester, died in the First World War, but I really didn't know anything beyond that. My mother and my sister were very fortunate to visit Chester's grave back when they were on a tour of Europe. And so for a brief moment, he was back in my frame of vision, so to speak. It wasn't until Liam started his biography that I realized I had a responsibility as well to learn more about my great uncle. So I pulled my head out of the sand and I went to work. A great online resource for Liam was the Library and Archives Canada and the Canadian Virtual War Memorial. Because veterans of the First World War are deceased, their records are accessible to the public. These scanned documents contain the attestation papers, casualty forms, assigned pay, etc. There's handwritten notes that can be difficult to read, and there are abbreviations like GSW, gunshot wound, or TOS, taken on strength, that sometimes non-military folk like myself just don't understand. Now, that being said, it was a good place to start to learn more about Chester in the First World War. After reading this, my gut told me that Chester would have fought in the Battle of Vimy Ridge. Now, at that time, Chester was part of the 44th Battalion, which was with the 4th Division. All Canadian divisions fought together at the Battle of Vimy Ridge. But because he wasn't injured or killed, there was nothing in his personal records to confirm that he was there. I went searching online for something called the War Diaries. Now, these are not diaries we think of when we think of the word, but they're rather official entries about the daily operations of Army units. I put a request in with the Library and Archives to send me digital copies of the War Diaries for the Light Trench Mortar Battery. Now, I knew it would take a long time to process this request, and I wasn't really even sure what I was looking for. So things were kind of at a standstill for the moment. Now, Liam continued his research, and he got personal information from my mom about Chester growing up in Ontario, which were stories her father had shared with her. So with that and the war records, Liam started to piece together his biography. Now, my gut, again, told me that there had to be some family knowledge about what Chester was like as a boy. Why did he join the war? Did he write letters home about his experience? And where were those letters now? Now, my grandfather's uniform, medals, kit bag were passed down to family members. Chester's items went to his parents when he died, but what would have happened to those items then when they passed away? My mother's 95-year-old cousin didn't have any stories about Chester from his father, and I contacted a distant relative who had done history on the Cunningham family, and he gave me contact information for the granddaughter of Chester's sister, but she didn't have anything either. So getting to know Chester from a family connections turned out to be a bit of a dead end, and no pun intended. Now, unfortunately, the COVID canceled Liam's travels to Europe with the Vimy Pilgrimage Award. The group, however, did go to Ottawa for a week, where they visited museums and cemeteries. They listened to guest speakers, they presented their reports, and they attended the Remembrance Day service at the Cenotaph on November 11th, 2021. Now, one of Liam's significant memories of his time there is placing his poppy on the tomb of the unknown soldier, while a piper played the last post in the distance and the sun set over that area. Now, at the time, Liam was in grade 12 at the Lutheran Collegiate Bible Institute in Outlook, Saskatchewan. Now, he was interviewed by the local paper about his travels to Ottawa and to the Outlook Legion, and the Outlook Legion branch had asked him to speak at one of their meetings. Now, that night, I had a wonderful discussion with John, a Legion member, about the difficulty in finding more detailed information about Chester. Now, search engines search for what you tell them to look for, and we were focusing on Chester and the First World War. And we didn't think about searching for Chester and Walkerton or Bruce County, where he was from. A few days later, John sent me an email with a link to a website article entitled Remembering Chester Cunningham by Jim Kelly, which was full of stories and details about Chester's war experience. I remember the chills I felt creeping over me as I was reading this article, because I really couldn't believe it. Finally, we had a personal connection to Chester that went beyond the short sentences written on his army record. So we have come to the end of our first episode, and I encourage you to join me in a couple of days to find out a little bit more. So thanks for tuning in.